The hurricane now is located just to the south of the Isle of Pines, or the Isle of Youth, south of Cuba, moving to the north at about 12 miles per hour, but is expected to slow down as it moves across Cuba. Now, hurricane conditions are expected to spread across Cuba, but then the thinking is the storm will veer to the right, and a hurricane watch is now in effect for the northern Bahamas, north of Nassau, thinking that the storm would make a turn something like this, but that's very, very uncertain. High winds in this area may very well veer the storm, but it may come closer to the Keys. Full coverage on News 4. It begins in just a few minutes at 5 o'clock.
To the Keys.
I'm Aline Sergani in Marathon with all the hurricane information you need to know from emergency operations officials.
I'm Bobby Harley. I'll show you how folks in the upper Keys are getting ready for Lili.
I'm Robert Burns in Key West. What kind of precautions are they taking here? How about sandbags and boards and a whole lot more?
And of course, the very latest on flood watch that we're under. I'm Cambrell Marshall.
And I'm Ann Roberts. Good evening, everyone. Just moments ago, a tropical storm warning has been issued for the Keys and a hurricane watch for northwest Bahamas. News 4's chief meteorologist Brian Norcross has more on that and where Lili might be heading now, Brian.
Might be the operative word, and we are seeing a hurricane moving fairly rapidly now to the north in the direction of the Florida Keys. The question is what's going to happen between now and the next 24 hours that it would take to get there. Let's start with the wide view as we go back to earlier today and watch the storm come to the north now, very, very close to the Isle of Pines, or the Isle of Youth there. You can see it consolidating, still a very large area. We well know here in South Florida, the outer influence of this storm can produce tremendous rains, and as the storm comes closer to us, those rains are just going to intensify, and the gustiness in the winds with those rainstorms will intensify. As we go closer up to the center here, we clearly see the very bright orange area. Now, the aircraft has found in here fragments of an eye wall. In fact, it's open to the southwest with a little curve right there, just approaching now the Isle of Pines, and looks like the storm will pass over that island and then over the western part of Cuba. The question is what's going to happen next. Now, we can look from the Key West radar. This is the new Key West Doppler radar out 287 miles down here. Here's the Isle of Pines, Isle of Youth. There is the eye wall right there, just coming into view, and you can see this tremendous amount of rain. These are very, very heavy storms going over the mountains of central Cuba, moving to the north, and this is a band that will come through. We have another band forming over South Dade right now, so more heavy rain is yet to come through here. The tropical storm warning in effect from Key Largo through the Dry Tortugas. That means winds of 39 to 74 miles per hour are expected within the next 24 hours, and if you do the calculations here, you'll see that we're within 24 hours of that storm if the movement continues. We'll do a little more on that in 1 second here. And here we see the hurricane warnings continue in effect for western Cuba and the hurricane watch in effect from New Providence north in the Bahama chain because of the thinking the storm will make a turn to the right. Now, here are the numbers at 5 o'clock. 21.2, 83.0, 80-mile-an-hour winds now, 80-mile-an-hour winds, so it is intensifying as we thought it would. North-northeast at 12. Remember that 12. Pressure dropping 365 miles from Miami. It puts that about 250 miles from the Keys. If you do that division out, you see that's less than 24 hours if it were to continue at the same rate to the north. But here's what's happening in the upper atmosphere. Remember yesterday, watching this little disturbance in the atmosphere moving out of Texas and across the Gulf. We think that's what has grabbed Lili and brought her north and a little bit east of north. But that little disturbance looks like it's going to go by, and we're waiting for this big disturbance back here to eventually sweep Lili out to the east. But in between here, we're thinking that Lili is going to slow down somewhere in the vicinity of Cuba or the Florida Straits before reaching the Keys. Can't guarantee that, but that's what the thinking is, so that it slows down, big disturbance comes along and sweeps it along. So with that in mind, this is our forecast track, taking it north over Cuba by afternoon tomorrow on the northern coast somewhere just into the Straits, and then sweeping to the east. But if it goes a little further north, notice we have a track possibility right over the Keys and over South Florida. If it actually stalls sooner, and some models indicate it's just going to get right up to Cuba and stall down here, then that next one comes along and sweeps it east across Cuba. A lot of uncertainty there, but let me say once again that with the current speed, it's less than 24 hours from the Keys on a direct heading, and that's why the tropical storm warning's been put up. And if it continues that and doesn't slow down like it's expected, then that would have to be upgraded to a hurricane warning, because we have an 80-mile-an-hour hurricane out there right now. All right, that's it for now. Back with more in just a little bit.
Indeed, Brian, thank you very much. Now grab a pen and some paper, because over the next 90 minutes we'll have several telephone numbers you can call for information about Lili. First, Neighbors for Neighbors can help answer any questions you have about the hurricane. Give them a call right now, 597-4404, and we're going to take you there live to the phone bank in about 9 minutes or so to find out the questions that you're asking, and we're going to get some of the answers for you. Again, call right now. The number 597-4404.
Now, Lili is making a bad situation worse here. I'm talking about all of the recent rain, so much rain that all of South Florida is under a flood watch until tomorrow. Now, that means flash flooding is possible anytime it rains. Also, officials say the sewer system is working at capacity, so that they're asking us now to reduce household water use until further notice. That means you should limit clothes.
Just south of the Isle of Youth appears to be the northern end of the eye wall from Hurricane Lili. Now, we can track this on Doppler and get a much better fix than we can with infrared satellite pictures, so it's good that we're finally seeing something on Doppler radar from the Key West area. All these rains, though, moving up toward the north and toward the east, spiraling out from that center of circulation. The forecast track from the Hurricane Center does have it making that sharp right, and believe me, there will be a right-hand turn, because there is a tremendous area of cold air and a huge trough coming out of the Rockies into the Midwest. Ahead of that, a line of severe thunderstorms now from Chicago all the way down through Little Rock, Arkansas. The question is, will the storm system move to the north and be deflected south of us to the east, or will it move farther to the north and be deflected near the Keys or South Florida? That's going to make all the difference in the world as to what type of bad weather and the duration of bad weather that we get here in South Florida and the Keys. And let me reiterate, at this point, there are no warnings or watches for the mainland, tropical storm warnings for the Keys. Timing is everything in this business. Everything has to be just right for this trough to pick Lili up and curve it to the right before it is a major, major threat. We're getting the rains anyway, and we have the flood watches in effect right through tomorrow. Here comes the storm system. We'll have increasing winds and rains anyway. They just may not be high winds if that right-hand turn occurs over North Cuba or the southern Florida Straits. Whatever happens, this front is going to come down the peninsula. We could see some cooler, drier air by the end of the weekend behind this hurricane. So with all that said, let's go out to see what's happening, because Jerry Gerald is out with Pam Giganti there in the National Hurricane Center to see what is going on. Pam?
Thanks very much, Bill. Yeah, Jerry and I were just talking about that little wobble moments ago, trying to figure out where the center of Lili is going at this point. Let's turn that question over to Deputy Director Jerry Gerald of the National Hurricane Center. Jerry, what's happening right now with the storm? It's not really moving at this point.
No, it could be a wobble, or it could be the long-anticipated slowdown with the turn. The models, as you recall from this morning, were all indicating that the thing was going to slow down, and it actually started moving a little faster, and we began to get concerned over that. Well, this is probably indicative then of that the models were probably right, and it will slow down as it turns. And this may be the beginning of the turn. Just a little too early to call it for sure now. But I think this is good news. In one way, it has to be good news because it gives us a little more time. I think it may be the beginning of what we've been looking for. But let's just hold off a little bit to call it.
And that certainly would be encouraging. As the longer the storm stays in one area, then that front, as it continues to move towards the south, it'll pick it up farther to the south, which would be really good news for us.
Excellent point. And that's the thing that we've got going for us. Not only are we gaining time that we could use for preparations if we need them, but we're also gaining time for that front to close in on it. So it's good.
What are we looking at then at 8 o'clock? Do you think at that point you might say we possibly could put up a hurricane warning for the Keys by 11 o'clock?
Well, we might say something like that. The latest fix indicates that it hasn't moved, and we have now like 3 or 4 hours that it hasn't moved, and that's beginning to be enough to make us think it's probably a trend. And so it may not be necessary to make that statement at all, and we may just ride out with what we've got.
So we'll just have to wait and see then. That is going to be coming out at 8 o'clock, as Jerry mentioned. Jerry Gerald here with me at the National Hurricane Center, keeping us up to date on all of that. And just a quick note, I did talk with Billy Wagner, who's the Emergency Management Director of Monroe County, and he said if that is the case, they are already just kind of thinking along those lines and getting their evacuation preparations in order now in case a warning is issued. So if that is the case, they certainly will have some evacuations in the Keys. We'll certainly keep you posted on all of those developments as well. From the National Hurricane Center, Pam Giganti, 7 News.
All right, thanks a lot, Pam. Good news from Jerry Gerald regarding the mainland, though. And as you just heard, the big concern is going to be flooding, not so much because of the hurricane, but the flooding and the rains that we've already gotten here. 7's Rochelle Stewart is joining us now live from Sweetwater, one community prone to flooding, and some of that already being witnessed. Rochelle?
Well, you know, the rain that has been coming here on and off all day